Hello everyone, and we're here today with the CineMilled extended tilt arms for the DJI Ronin, and we just want to show you how to install them because most of it is fairly easy, but there's a small part of it that is a little tricky, and we have a trick to show you that'll make it really easy to install. Now the extended tilt arms are basically give you about an inch longer, which is about all the cable can handle, so that you could balance top heavy situations or heavier cameras. So basically, if you have, once you get the other CineMilled extensions and you have a zoom lens or a heavy PL lens and a matte box and a battery on the back and all this kind of thing, you can manage to balance all that without having to put anything underneath the camera or do any other sort of weird setup. You can just slide the camera down and be balanced and be ready to shoot. So we're going to start off by taking off this bolt right here, these two bolts. There are two, one on each side. And you don't need to take the bolts all the way out, simply loosen them a little bit. And then repeat that on the other arm. And then the next thing we want to do is remove the stopper collar. So this collar is basically there so that if this gets loose and it slides to the bottom, it gets stopped and doesn't yank on your cable. Yeah, this cable right here that goes through the arm and everything. So we need to remove this, of course. So grab that. And once again, just loosen it. And we could take that off. And then repeat with the other side. And loosen the clamps. Okay, now that the clamps are loose, you can slowly slide out. There we go. And so, as you can see, the cradle, as I call it, is now separated from the Ronin, attached only by the cable. So we'll set that aside for now. So just once again, just loosen these bolts right here, and then the arm will simply slide off the shaft, as you see. So there you see the stock arm, and here is the CineMilled version. So you can see here the increase in length, and once again, we could have made it longer, but you wouldn't have enough cable to make use of it. So on the motor side, let's take a look here. So on the motor side, this is your tilt motor right there, it's fairly straightforward. So basically, if you look at the CineMilled arms, you want to face the scales towards the outside, just like the stock ones were. So then basically that means that there's a left and a right. So in this case, that's the left arm, and since this one was going to face outside, this is the right arm. So one more thing is, you're going to notice that there are some grooves right here, and these grooves are the locating grooves. And if we take a closer look, right in here, you'll see as the axle spins, right? Let's spin the axle. There's a little collar right there, and that collar has a little surface that pops up that mates with the groove on the arm. So that keeps the arm from rotating on the shaft. So the only thing we're going to want to be careful of when installing the CineMilled arms is to line up the groove right there with the arm. So and simply slide the CineMilled arm onto place. You can hold the collar in place and then rotate until you see it fall into the groove. Once you have the arm installed, one thing you want to check to see if you didn't tighten it or you didn't locate it in the wrong spot. So it's really easy to check that. Basically, you want to see your freedom of movement. Eventually it's going to stop, and you can see here it's basically stopping before it's even looking straight. So that means we've located the arm in the wrong position. So if you can't tilt down in this case, then you've located the arm in the wrong position. You want to check this now, because the last thing you want to do is have it all assembled and then realize you mislocated the arm. So once again, grab your Allen, make it loose. Enough to slide the arm off. And what we want to do so you can hold the collar with something and then rotate it. It can be a little tricky, and it's also a little hard to show you right now, but basically you see here as I rotate, there's this little part that sticks out here that has an Allen. So usually what I do is I stick an Allen in it, therefore I can keep this from rotating. And I take our arms right here and I slide them on until they click into the groove, and then I could remove the locator. So once it's in there, we can once again check our movement. So the correct motion, the correct amount of motion is it should stop at about 7 o'clock right there, and it should allow you to tilt all the way until the arm hits the back here, right? So that is proper amounts of motion. So once you find the correct amount of motion and it's locked into the groove there, then you can tighten it up. Oops, wrong Allen. Alright, so there it is, finished and installed, and you can see here it stops right there and it allows me to pan or tilt all the way back. So the motor side is now finished, and basically now in order to do the non-motor side of the arm, we need to remove the cable. The cable goes into the cradle and then it comes out here and goes into the GCU right here. So it's really simple. So you just grab all the cables together and slightly tug back, and you'll see it comes out rather easily, and you can separate them. You see right there, it's loose now. And so what we're going to want to do is gently start pulling the cable, and you can also feed it into the hole, because you definitely want to, the whole purpose of this is so that you don't yank the end out of that cable, because that would be a real pain. So I'm going to feed it in there so that when I pull it doesn't get caught on anything, right? So when I pull it doesn't get caught on anything right there. So now I pull back, I continue to pull back, I continue to pull back gently, and eventually it's going to stop and not want to come out. Now this is where most people get stuck. So the trick here is, hopefully you can see it a little bit. They made this hole really small, and what we want to do is we need to get the rectangular connector through a round hole. So, how do you do that? So this is where the first time I did it took me a long time until I found a way to do this. But basically what you need to do is take that square connector and turn it sideways, and then so lengthwise, since it's rectangular, it can come out of the hole. So the easiest way to do this is by using a simple paper clip. See, there it is, paper clip. So what we do is you're going to want to unfurl one of the ends of the paper clip so that it's just like that, and we're going to use the tip of the paper clip to turn the connector in the direction we need it to be so that we can pull this out. Alright, so let's give this a try. So, this is a little tricky here to show you, but I'm going to attempt to do it and show you that within a few seconds you can get this cable out. So once again, using the paper clip, and you're going to want to take a look in there until right there you can start seeing the connector. And basically what you want to do is just use the paper clip as a finger to flatten out that connector, and see it's almost coming out. It's now flat, right? And by using the paper clip, you can also use some needle, a needle if you have it. You see there, and it came out. Look at that. Look at that. So it is now separated. So I'm going to do that one more time to show you that it's not magic. It's actually fairly simple. So once again, you turn the connector sideways like that, basically in line with the cable, right? So, and that's actually how you put it back in also. And you can use the paper clip to shove it back in. Okay, so as you can see, we're totally back in. I'm going to show you one more time. Pull on the cable until the connector, you can see the connector through the hole, and then you'll see an edge. There's a little lip on the connector itself, and you can use the tip of the paper clip. You can grab against that lip and then essentially push towards the cable to flatten it out, and look at that. Once again, I removed it within a few seconds. So it's one of those things that with the right technique, you can install this and deinstall it within seconds. And once again, all you need is the paper clip. And so with the right technique, you can put it in, you can pull it out. It's really not that difficult once you know the magic trick. And so I wish I had a macro lens I could show you a little better, but I don't. But basically you use the paper clip and you use that to manipulate and turn the connector. So I'll even do it a third time. So let's shove the connector in there. There it is, it's all the way in, and then pull it out until you see the connector, and then you turn the connector with the paper clip, and voila, once again. So at this point, the cradle is completely free and clear. You can set that aside. And the same procedure you did with the other arm, you do with the non-motor sidearm. So you loosen these two Allens, you slide that out, and then you do what we've been waiting to do, which is slide the cable out from the inside of that axle shaft. So you grab the CineMilled version, which goes to 11, and this side, you'll notice, does not have a locating pin. So it's different than the other side. So there's no locating pin. So it really doesn't matter where you put this on the axle. because it's just a dummy side basically. So once again, you grab the cable, feed it through the axle shaft hole, and slide it on. And at this point, I just snug it up. I don't go super tight. So you have two options at this point. You can go ahead and feed it through and have it come out the hole right there and then plug the cable back in. Or you can not feed it through. And what that does for you, and that's what I recommend doing, because first of all, it makes going back and forth a lot quicker. And then second of all, you actually get a little bit more length out of this drop down cable, because you don't have to go make a turn here, go in, make another turn out. All you do is you could just run across to the connector. So I'm going to show you how to finish the install doing it like that. Alright, now we're going to do the cradle installation. So cradle's now free and clear, of course, disconnected from the cable. I've fed the arm through, and so now this is what we have. So at this point, you have two options. You can choose to feed the cable back in and then back out and then plug it in, or do what I prefer to do because it makes installation back and forth really easy, which is to not feed it through the cradle, because what happens is you have to go down and then make a right and then out, so you lose cable length. So by not feeding it through, you actually gain a little cable, which allows you to maximize the length that the arms give you. So at this point then, with the cable passed through and the two arms installed, and this arm properly located on the locating pin, all you have to do is line up on the cradle, on the clamps there, and just get them in both at the same time, and then simply push down the center right there, and you'll see it feeds all the way through, no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp these down so that it doesn't move. And then at this point, you want to reinstall your safety stop rings. And I want to change my tool here to the right Allen. And right there, just put it on the bottom. Tighten that up. Put this one on the bottom of this guy. And tighten that up. Alright. So all we have to do now is connect the cable again. So let me flip this over. Okay, see here I flipped it around so we can have a better look at this. And basically with the correct orientation, which is pins down, you reconnect your connector. So I use the corner of my Allen, or you can use the paper clip again and push down on the corners, not on the cables, so that you can properly push down a little bit on each side. You can see here me doing a little bit on each side, and that way you can get the cable fully seated. So as you can see here, now that I'm not feeding the cable through the cradle, I have a lot more slack on this cable. So let's see here now if we can get the full down drop extension. And there it is, all the way to the bottom. As you can see, we have plenty of cable left right there. Plenty of cable left. And I mean, you can always just put a piece of paper tape right there so it doesn't interfere with what you have going on over there. But this way you have more slack. You can also feed it through, and I'll show you how it looks when you do that. But basically, at this point, a long tilt arm extended Ronin. And notice here I have our CineMilled arm extensions. I also have the CineMilled pan extension. And completing the CineMilled extended Ronin setup is now the tilt arms. So the one thing that you have to watch out for, and now that you have this extended Ronin, is the obvious thing, which is, of course, since now these are longer, you can no longer go 100 or 90 degrees straight down. So it goes to about 90 before you hit, which is, unavoidable. If you want to go longer, there's no way, unless we would change the arms on the Ronin, for that to be possible. But for most people, that's not necessarily a problem. 90 degrees down is already plenty, and you're good to go. So obviously, once again, in the end, it should stop right there, and it should stop right there. So the last thing I would recommend is that when you initialize the app, the Ronin DJI app, you can set a tilt limit for the tilt arm. So basically, it's to avoid you crashing into your Ronin. So just go into the app and select a setting. It starts at 100, and just slowly start working it down until the motors stop it themselves before you have physical contact, and that way you'll never have that problem. Okay. All right, and there you have it. You have your fully installed CineMilled extended tilt arm, and hopefully you were able to master the paperclip trick, and this way you can go back and forth really easily. And thank you very much for your purchase. If you have any additional questions, you can email us at sales@cinemilled.com. Otherwise, stay tuned for awesome new products